gentlemen, please be seated. Welcome to this extraordinary council meeting. I would like to advise all present that in order to prove engagement in the democratic process, tonight's meeting will be recorded, with the audio recording being published on the council's website. If any of the members of the public do not wish to be filmed, I would like to give you the opportunity to leave the chamber now. Is there anybody that would like to leave? No, thank you very much. So this evening, it's particularly important that you're reminded to respect each other when speaking, and do not speak across the chamber when other members are speaking. All requests to speak must come through myself, and I would also like to remind members to please stand and use their microphones when speaking. Can you please make sure that your mobile phones and any gadgets are switched off? Thank you. Before we go on to the items, I would like to please stand to have a 2-minute silence for Grace Mullane. Many of us will know the Mullane family. Indeed, we had a councillor, Mullane, who was here, and a mayor of Thurrock, and indeed it's his granddaughter that's been murdered in New Zealand. Please stand with me, and we'll have a 2-minute silence. Thank you. Please be seated. I've agreed and accepted an urgent item of business this evening entitled Issues and Options Stage 2, Consultation. A copy of the report was sent out last Friday to members, and hard copies can be found on your desks. I will be tabling this item after item 2, Declarations of Interest. We move on to item 1, which is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Fletcher, McPherson, Salmons, Tolson, Abbas and Baldwin. Are there any further apologies?
Lots of apologies for Councillor Thompson, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you. We move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members or officers this evening? None, thank you. We now move on to our report on the issues and options stage 2 consultation. We have 5 minutes allocated for this paper, and I understand Councillor Coxall is going to present it. You have 5 minutes for that.
I won't be taking it. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for taking this item to much people and as I understand it last week. Having an up-to-date local development plan is a key issue around Thurrock. It sorts out the way we're growing in the right way for all of us, especially necessary the infrastructure first policy that we this council wants like to pursue. Thurrock is an increasingly great place to live and work, but it comes with needs of growth and housing and development. Coupled with lifestyle changes means Thurrock and the wider South East Essex area will need to change considerably over the next 30 to 30 years. The next stage of the local plan, here today, called Issues and Options, seeks to get the views of our communities and how they should be in Thurrock and how they should grow to meet these needs. As I've said before, we need to make sure that the borough grows in a way that's society and economically good for us all. The necessary infrastructure being first to make these demands. The last administration in February 2014 gave approval to undertake a review of the core strategy and begin preparations for a new local plan. With this, we are working to release this information to the residents to have their say on the work we've done on this so far. But before I answer questions, this go through a couple of things which it's not. This plan here today, Issues and Options, is not agreeing numbers or promoting any specific site. It is only stage 2 or 3. It's going out to consultation, including which developers and landowners have offered us sites. And it's not the final plan. That plan will come forward in the next 2 years for public inquiry, and we have ample opportunities. So that's it. What it is, though, a commitment inside here that we'd like to set to. A commitment for quality and new infrastructure, making it easier to see a GP, making better road networks, improvements and protecting the green belt, and so we have good quality green belt. And saying there's a large, and we need to say, saying in here, there's a large number of council houses and low-cost homes that demand to build them. That will make it easier for working families to the ability to afford and live and rent a home in Thurrock where they work. With more choice sites offered here than we actually need to fulfil our needs, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and real choice, which is unusual compared to the rest of Essex, if you look, and right across the country. That way, making this a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our residents and the people in this room to decide the shape of our towns and villages in the future. All parties have worked hard on this stage to make compromises have been made to get this document where it is today. And I sincerely thank the cross-party working over the last 16 months in this document. And without that, we could not be here. And I would like to pick out some people here. Obviously, Councillor Gerard Rice for his work here, Oliver Gerish for his work in the very early days through this, and Luke Stillman and Councillor Kent over recently. Because the monthly meetings here were very hard, but we actually went together, and obviously we've got a document I'm sure will change drastically in the next 2 years before it goes to public inquiry, and which it should do. So with that, I'm opening up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coxall. Councillor Kieran, as Chair of the Planning, Transport and Region, Overview and Scrutiny, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After many different drafts and much to and fro, we now have this draft before us. Is it perfect? No. However, I believe that there is enough to be able to agree on and to send to consultation. What this draft does is recognise that the local plan is a land use document, not a record of numbers of homes that the government wants to impose upon us. And with housing in mind, it is my view that the success of this plan, going into 2022 and beyond, will need to address the need for affordable housing, low-cost housing and council housing. We will have failed as a local authority if we fail on affordable housing, low-cost housing and council housing. Equally, we must ensure that the communities we build are sustainable and, crucially, shared around our borough in a fair and equitable manner. Whether we look at major urban extensions, small urban extensions, village expansions, isolated site allocations, or indeed a new settlement, we must always be mindful that all of our towns and villages have character. All of our towns and villages have proud histories, and it's our mission to make sure that they have proud futures too. With all of this said, I will be supporting this draft local plan, and I will work, whether in opposition or administration, to make sure that it is used as something that we can do for ourselves, not something that is done to us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kieran. Councillor John Kemp, would you like to speak?
I'll be very, very brief. As has been said, this is a consultation document, a very important document nonetheless. In many ways, I think we've now done the easy bit in agreeing to go out and talk to residents and businesses and developers, see what ideas they have, see how what they want to see the borough being shaped over the next 20 years. But we do have to remember that when it comes back, it's for us and it's for members of this authority to control the way that the area grows over the next 20 or so years. I think that's really important. As Councillor Curran has said, it's far from a perfect document. I don't think any local plan issues and options document that I've seen is perfect, but it's in a much, much better place than it was just a couple of months ago. And I again pay tribute to the officers and members who have put a lot of time and effort into doing this. With that, I would just ask for one further amendment tonight, which is on the time available for consultation. Bearing in mind that we are just coming into the Christmas period, it would be useful, I think, if we gave a longer period for residents to be able to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Councillor Spill, would you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we safely say we've had our moments over the last week, but we're here. I'm not going to be attempting to block this proposal going forward. Just like Councillor Kemp and Councillor Cottrell before me, I'd like to thank the officers who put a lot of work into this. I'd like to thank, initial meetings weren't as productive as they should have been, but we've got there definitely in the end. And it's good to see that, some of these local plan nights, even for issues and options, can be a bit of a bonfire across the borough, as we know. And it's testament, if we can, get this through tonight without any silliness, I think it's testament to the fact that although we do let ourselves down occasionally, it's not the worst council in the world. Thank you very much.
Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is fair to say this consultation document is in a much better place than when we were originally presented with it. The original plan was nothing more than a poo-poo platter for developers, an invitation for them to pick and choose where they wanted to build houses without any real regard for the needs or ambitions of Thurrock residents. I am pleased to see that the plan is in much healthier shape and has been much improved by proper consultation with all groups. It's starting to show some ambition. I'm particularly pleased to see our suggestions around asking residents what we want our high streets to look like has been included, and that an aspiration to build significant numbers of socially rented housing is being put on the table as an option for residents to consider. And I appreciate that our suggestion to lengthen the public consultation window has been accepted. However, I still have two concerns about this document as it stands. Firstly, given that congestion and air quality is one of the biggest challenges this borough faces, there is only one question on the transport network, with no real sense of a developed vision or set of options for residents to comment on. There is a commitment in the document to limit any associated rise in air pollution, but there is not one question on how we can improve air quality. Secondly, I have serious concerns about the wording of the section outlining spatial options for the construction of housing. despite the colossal impact a major urban extension would have on a community like Ockenden, for example, the document lists only 2 challenges affecting residents. And I quote, "Large-scale development can change the nature, character of the existing settlement, and urban extensions have the most direct impact upon immediately adjoining communities." An understated choice of language, you may argue, but fairly neutral in tone. Flick ahead to the challenges of village expansion and you get something a bit more meaty and somewhat more emotive language. I quote, "Development of scale both within and adjoining the villages of Borthon, Orsett and Horn-on-the-Hill would have a significant adverse impact on the environmental quality and character of the villages, and development of scale would go beyond the natural capacity of the villages and their setting to absorb growth and lead to irreversible damage to their character and the physical and natural environment." I think the people of South Ockenden might argue the same thing about their village. On the issue of timing, we all know the importance of the local plan and that there is significant pressure on us tonight to get this through to consultation, both in order to avoid government intervention and to strengthen our defence against the Lower Thames crossing. It is for these reasons that I will not vote against this plan going to consultation. I do feel, though, that we could have got to this point so much sooner if all members had been listened to and meaningfully engaged with earlier on in this process. I would like my previously expressed reservations.
3 minutes is up now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will be supporting the motion, but I would like my concerns taken forward into the analysis of the consultation responses.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard Rice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, of course, it's pleasing to have this document today. A lot of hard work between groups across the council and officers. In particular, it is pleasing because the last thing we want to become is another Castle Point, where government inspectors come in, and the Castle Point, I think it will be Essex County Council will be appointed, and what will happen is they will say, "You're going to have the houses here, there and there." You have no consultation at all. And of course, the other thing we must all remember is that when this document comes back from consultation, it is at that stage we will then have a further round of discussions to look at the site allocations. And that will be the most important document to come forward. But it's pleasing to see the document is in good order. The portfolio mentioned, the infrastructure led, which is good. We must hold you to that mark. The council house commitments, which is good. And these are positive things for our residents, and that's why I will be supporting it this evening.
Councillor Jedhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Indeed, many of the points I was going to raise will be raised this evening. We have to ensure through this consultation that we bring residents with us as we go through the entire plan from now until it actually comes to completion many years in the future. But we need to make sure it's done with us, not to us. We all experience the problems we have when we have a development corporation doing exactly that, and you end up with problems that you've seen perfectly, with lots and lots and lots of homes without the infrastructure. So obviously making sure that our infrastructure first is obviously key to this. Including being key to this is also the affordable homes and council homes. The discussions which were everybody driving to the same point from the same point was fantastic in our discussions. It's not just affordability, it's council homes. There are 2 different things. And we're making that commitment, or beginning to make that commitment as we go through the process. I am going to touch on the fact that all of our surrounding Essex local authorities have had some form of intervention notice. The one thing I would hate is if we also end up with some form of intervention notice, because that's a big chunk of Essex that someone somewhere will go, "Oh, that screams out for a development corporation." And we end up back where we were when I first became a councillor, unelected members making decisions where homes go, forgetting everything else that those homes need to thrive. Councillor Potter had some absolutely fantastic points earlier, and thank you very much for that. And I can guarantee they will all go forward, as every point that will come from tonight, if there are any more, will do. We do need to get this in place. It will strengthen our hand elsewhere, and it just shows our ongoing commitment to make sure that we bring Thurrock along as a whole, and not just from here at council, or not just from some government body that's set up to inflict on us what they feel like. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Deadfield. Councillor Gearish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's fair to say, first of all, that the route we've taken to get here has been fairly shambolic. I think it's a bit of a disgrace, really, that the first members see a hard copy of this document is in front of them on the night of the vote when we're discussing possibly an item related to one of the biggest things that we'll decide in Thurrock across the course of 20 years. But it is a vote about the consultation itself. And I think for me there's one major concern still in terms of the consultation document that's placed in front of us, and that's question 7 on page 40. Members will see that the question asks to ensure that enough homes are provided in Thurrock over the planned period. Which approach should the plan look to adopt? Are there any other options that should be considered? And we're presented a choice between two approaches. Approach A, of setting a housing target that mirrors our objectively assessed housing need, calculated using the standard method. Or approach B, set a housing target higher than Thurrock's objectively assessed housing need. Now, Madam Mayor, that objectively assessed need might be 32,000, it might be 24,000, it might be whatever number comes forward in a couple of years' time. But it feels like Thurrock residents are being presented with a pretty impossible choice here of voting through this consultation for a number that I think many of them will not accept. So I think it's very kind of dangerous territory that we're on in terms of how we consult around housing numbers. Madam Mayor, I've also got concerns around the accessibility of the document. Question 24, what is the scope and nature of the plan and policy support required to facilitate the rollout of high-quality digital communications infrastructure in Thurrock? I think there are very few residents that are going to be able to engage with some of the questions that are laid out in front of them. We have other questions as well in terms of priorities. So let's take page 99 and car parking questions. In fact, the only questions I can see presented on car parking through the document. Well, question 35A, the lead question on this section is, where could car parking be reduced? I think it's fair to say that this isn't a document that provides many answers for residents that are concerned, particularly from a residential point of view, for improving car parking provision across the borough. I agree with what colleagues have already said in terms of air quality, and that's another important area where we need to do more. There's no particular area in this document that we set out an approach or a vision, or indeed the ability for residents to feed directly into our vision of air quality. And finally, Madam Mayor, I think it's important as well that we reflect on how members are involved in this process. I can't see any mention through the consultation process document of how members' workshops might be constituted or how members might feed into this process, and it's absolutely crucial that we do have that engagement, not purely for the period of consultation that is in front of us now, but also more broadly as an ability for all 49 members to feed into the process ahead of the completion of the draft local plan in coming years. Madam Mayor, I do welcome the improvements that have been made to this document.
3 minutes.
All I ask is for 3 assurances. First of all, that members will be involved through workshops.
Councillor Gearish, you do have 3 minutes is already up. We're going to move on to Councillor Lynn Worrell now, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with others that tonight this document has come some way from when it was last presented to us. Even if I did have to print it myself, it's a shame that we didn't get it in time to read it ahead, and some will have only just seen it in a printed form tonight, so maybe we should look into that in the future. I do think that the part on how you have your say has already been raised, and that the time frame is simply not long enough for us to have a meaningful consultation with our residents. And whilst forums are still really important and they play their part, they're not always representative of the communities, and many no longer are meeting. My mum does not attend clubs, she doesn't go to the library, she doesn't use the internet. How would she and others like her even know that this consultation was taking place? Looking further into the document on page 33, it talks about the waste plan and that there will be a separate consultation that will take place. Now this must be carried out alongside the local plan and planning for it to be in the right sites. And I'm concerned that just running another consultation alongside it may well get lost, so we need to make sure that the two do get captured together. And at every opportunity, I've talked about significant numbers of housing, which is, a lot of this is about housing, a big chunk of the document will bring significant numbers of people, and our cemeteries are already nearing capacity, and I cannot see anywhere in the document that shows that we're actually planning for a new cemetery. We've already had a paper come to scrutiny that talks about reusing graves, you know, so we do need to realise that people will be dying to get into these cemeteries. And our parks are very, very precious, and in recent months we've not always agreed on our parks and the disposal of them. So, and I do object to our borough that we have this limited green space, and we must identify our green spaces to protect them from the developers, the government, and in some cases even from ourselves. So again, I'd like to make sure that we do identify our green spaces. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak before we move to the vote?
Can I just ask, request that this is a requisition vote, please?
I'm just going to ask Councillor Coxall to sum up. I do apologise. We can move to a requisition vote afterwards, but first of all, Councillor Coxall has 2 minutes to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Coxall.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful, actually, going through that. I'll just touch on some of the people. Councillor Kent, the Times, yes, I think it's quite right. We should just extend the consultation period. I think we agreed that yesterday, so that's fine. The cross-party working, I think we need to continue that and do more of that. I've been pressing, I think we did some workshops towards the last month or so with all members, invitations over 2 nights. I think that much more of that needs to happen, and that touches on Councillor Worrell's thing about to actually deliver member engagement. And I think I went to both events in the evening. I think we need to do more of that, to actually deliver and drive all our ideas together. I mean, some of the ideas are coming out of the same people, and sometimes we can discount the ideas and bits and pieces, and it's a much better working instead of 3 isolated groups working together. It come up in this, I've always wanted to do it. I've tried it a month ago. I think we'll do more of that, and especially the members' engagement, suggestion that comes to me today, that will be part of that. I think that will be the opportunity. The Council of the High Streets, you have a fantastic idea. You're right, all of them 3 ideas, and that's actually thinking back to what we agreed, that if that come instead of just leaders' meetings and portfolio holders and conversations, I think that would have come through, and we would change the questions today. They're completely legitimate ideas, and they should be in here, and that should have been changed, and that comes back to the idea of actually page turning, looking at this continuously as in working groups with all members, all 49 of us have a stake in this document. So that is an idea we need to move forward on. Housing numbers, Councillor Garish, and member engagement, I've asked on member engagement. Housing numbers, it's difficult to housing number because it does factually change, the statistics change, it goes up and down over the last 10 years. It's pretty constant around the same ballpark area, but I understand that, and the question's really about if we want to deliver thousands and thousands of council pages.
Councillor Cox.
Yeah, okay, and then the last point, we need to think about the number. And the last point, Councillor Rice, last point, I am going to be proud tonight if we can actually vote this through. I just say, look, this is a vote through, because the 3 groups where everyone thinks we're not doing it, and across Essex, as all sorts of mayhem, with all sorts of groups breaking up, we've took a bit of time on this. Let's think, I plead with you all today, the requisition, let's just push it through and make sure we get out of conversation, we can have our fights going forward, and it's best to just see this tonight and go out tonight to my
Thank you very much, Councillor Coxall. I have given you 30 seconds extra. Okay, so before we go to the vote, I just want to assure all members that have spoken and made points that the Chief Executive has made a note of those and they will not be lost. So we're now going to move to the vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, when I call your name, if you can indicate whether you're for, against, or abstain from the report. Councillor Akinbone. Councillor Kellerman.
For.
Councillor Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Anderson.
Or.
Councillor Cherry.
Abstain.
Councillor Churchill. Councillor Fish.
For.
Councillor Gamester.
Abstain.
Councillor Gerrish.
Against.
Councillor Glesner.
For.
Councillor Haig. For. Councillor Howden.
For.
Councillor Hebb.
For.
Councillor Holloway.
For.
Councillor Hewlin.
For.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Cathy Kent.
For.
Councillor John Kent.
For.
Councillor Kerrin.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Lydiard.
For.
Councillor Little.
For.
Councillor Maney.
For.
Councillor Canade.
For.
Councillor Piccolo.
For.
Councillor Apothecary.
For.
Councillor Potter.
Abstain.
Councillor Redsell.
For.
Councillor Barbara Rice.
For.
Councillor Gerard Rice.
For.
Councillor Rigby.
For.
Councillor Schmidt.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Spillman.
Abstain.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Worrell.
For.
The recommendations are carried. We now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the report on the Lower Thames crossing consultation. Under Rules 3.7 of the Council Procedural Rules, I will be inviting co-opted members of the Lower Thames Crossing Task Force to speak during this item. Councillor Gledhill, will you please introduce your report? You have 5 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will try to squeeze it in with the 5 minutes allowed. Tonight we discussed Consultation Response to Highways England's disastrous plans to cut Thurrock in half with a motorway to facilitate yet another river crossing in Thurrock. Like everyone in this chamber, I remain opposed to this plan. Not the idea of putting more crossings between north and south of the Thames, not the idea of reducing traffic on overcapacity roads, but the idea of driving yet another motorway through our green belt, another road that will pollute our air, plan for another crossing that doesn't even meet the strategic needs of the South East as a whole, and indeed just tie our borough up in traffic knots. In the report and the appendices, you will see everything that's been raised as a council where Highways England has fallen short of what should have been the ask of this crossing. Let's not forget, the original idea for this was to alleviate the pressure at the current crossing between Dartford and Thurrock. Instead of the more obvious question, which should have been, how do we improve traffic movements north and south of the Thames, east of London? That question would have more likely been relevant at the time and produced a decent set of crossings east of Tower Bridge to the current crossing, and then one further on past Thurrock to create perhaps another London bypass or even another London Ring Road. However, this is not the time to say what the question was wrong about, what was wrong with the question. It's not time to say no and just hope it goes away, and if it doesn't, just to play politics. This is about a constructive response to saying why we feel that this is not right for Thurrock. Now, I could take up a lot of time tonight on each point of Highways England, for instance, moving the goalposts when it comes to consultation, when it comes to deadlines, changing deadlines for the local authority, saying one thing in one meeting, saying something somewhere else, even suggesting that it was me personally that had something to do with the beluga whale that might be causing problems as we go forward. It's true, I kid you not. But you will note from the report from our consultants, Peter Brett Associates, the drastic shortfalls of Highways England's plan. And again, I could take up probably the rest of the night going item by item, but I really can't. So I'll just highlight a few. Tilbury Link Road. It is not clear from the evidence presented within the consultation materials why the proposed connections to the Port of Tilbury has been removed and options testing not provided. This is clearly contrary to the National Network's National Planning Policy Statement of encouraging trade and attracting investment. Not my words, Pete Brett's. The health impacts. The preliminary environmental information report, or PEER, doesn't contain a standalone assessment of human health impacts. Nowhere in the report was it simply outlined. It's spread across many chapters. Indeed, they don't even define human health. How can they say that they are doing their best to limit the impacts when they don't even define what human health is? They literally will end up comparing what they like to whenever they like and how they feel. Again, Highways England have not assessed the road links where there's a change of more than 1,000 annual average daily traffic movements. But when you check further in the report from Pete Brett's, it says the Institute of Air Quality Management suggests that that number should be halved or indeed reduced by a factor of 10 to give an air impacts assessment whether that air impacts quality management area is in place. They're using outdated figures for vehicle emissions from DEFRA, and literally I could carry on all night about the impacts on the environment, ancient monuments, lack of waste management strategy for the millions of tonnes of earth that's going to be moved, vibrations, traffic modelling, and again this list itself goes on and on. However, Appendix B, Consultation Response, we are looking to agree tonight, as that will be the response that government will need to look at to see why we're saying no to this diabolical idea. I know all members have had the opportunity to discuss this with officers and hope where they need to have that opportunity to take that up. Again, I'm not going to seek to read the inside 20 pages of document response out, so I know everyone's taken the time to do that. And I feel that it covers the points that we as a local authority need to cover to make clear this is not NIMBYism, this isn't scaremongering, this isn't just saying no for no's sake, this is clear evidence response and states that this chamber remains opposed to the Lower Thames crossing and sets out the reasons why we are opposed. I've just been given the speed up, Councillor Gledhill, so I will cut pretty much to my last statement. When I started, it was just us, the MPs, and indeed the good people of the Lower Thames Crossing Action Group that seems to be opposed. That's now expanded. Gratian against. Southend make it clear that the proposal is not fit for purpose. Castle Point saying the same. South Essex, Opportunity South Essex, sharing a number of our concerns. Thurrock Business Board, again, against. This isn't NIMBYism, this is realism. These objections need to be done, and I hope every single member will carry on supporting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. You're now on to Councillor Peter Smith as Chair of the Lower Thames Crossing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just briefly on the back of Rob's presentation, can I just add that there were another 9 comments from last night's Lower Thames Task Force meeting that will be worked into the response. After thousands of hours of work by members and officers and our expert consultants, we're here tonight. What we have before us is exhaustive and detailed, and I believe it supports the opinion of all 49 councillors in their continued opposition. Throughout the process, the consensus of the task force is that Highways England have been unhelpful, worst and unimpressive at best. Delays to questions and queries raised by officers and the task force alike were numerous. This didn't make life easy for us in the task force as we battled and struggled to get information on time. This report goes to extraordinary lengths, and like Rob, I'm not going to go through line by line, but I just really would like to draw members' attention to page 15, 2 specific items. 3.5 item 2 and 3.6 item 1. The consultation material has substantial information gaps, inaccurate assessments and under-reporting of impacts. The consultation scheme does not meet several of the National and Highways England's own strategic policy tests and scheme objectives, particularly relating to option testing, as mentioned by Councillor Gledhill, and the delivery of economic growth and achieving substantial growth. We know the history of the crossings here. The Western Wall was built in '63, and 17 years later the Eastern Wall came along because it could not cope. 11 years later, the Q2 bridge was built because we could not cope with the traffic. And 27 years later, we're here tonight, and by the time this scheme, if it goes ahead, is built in a decade, it will be 37 years since anything has been done to deal with this problem of the traffic congestion. I suggest this proposal is already out of date by a long shot. And to sum up, for members and residents in the gallery, in summary, Highways England's consultation is full of holes, delivers little or nothing in the way of social and economic growth. Madam Mayor, Highways England need to take away their proposals, have a hard look at themselves, listen to our residents, and think of the people of Thurrock as more than a number on a spreadsheet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. I'd now like to move to Linda Mully, who's a resident representative on the Lower Thames Crossing Task Force. Would you like to speak on this report? Thank you.
Thank you. Not so much about the report, but overall. I'm reminded of the saying, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Having sat on the task force for more than a year, I think at times there's been some similarities to Thurrock Council's response to Highways England's proposals for a Lower Thames crossing through our borough. The saying comes from where a great fire ravaged Rome, destroying 70% of the city and leaving half of its population homeless and its people suffering. This time, not Rome, but Thurrock, where Highways England proposals would destroy huge areas of green belt, agricultural and environmentally sensitive and historic sites. The loss of hundreds of acres that could be used for building much needed housing will leave many of its population and most vulnerable without homes in years to come, and the quality of life irreversibly damaged with the levels of pollution in its many forms this 6-lane motorway will bring. Sadly, at task force, on occasions in the early days, I witnessed party one-upmanship take precedence over fighting the principal enemy here, these Highways England proposals. The fact that after 16 months plus there was still no agreed local plan shows that some of our leaders have been incapable of debating and negotiating an agreement for the good of the people they have been elected to represent. I hope from now on we witness a truly united resolve by every councillor, regardless of party, to use their contacts, office and determination to prevent Highways England from gaining final approval for this flawed and destructive plan. Nero is historically remembered as an ineffectual leader in a time of great crisis. Let's not this Thurrock Council be remembered in generations to come for the same damning indictment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would Laura Blake, representative from the Lower Thames Crossing Action Group, like to speak?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Mayor for this opportunity to speak this evening and all that were involved in bringing all the items to the agenda this evening. A special thanks to the officers and team working on the Lower Thames Crossing response for all the time and work they have put in. We all know that the time has been extremely limited since Highways England will not allow a long enough consultation period for everyone to be able to respond adequately. We all know that the Lower Thames Crossing and consultation is full of inadequacies. The Dartford Crossing will still be over capacity even if LTC opens. There are not adequate connections to and from the LTC, which will cause issues on a daily basis. We all know about the detour along the A13 to the Stamford Junction, for example. It is questionable, to say the least, that Highways England have not taken into account how traffic will migrate between the two crossings when there is an incident, which again will cause more chaos, congestion and pollution. We know there are numerous errors within the consultation documents that are both misleading and confusing. Errors have also been made in the letters that Highways England have been sending to residents and businesses, including many residents that are not directly impacted, yet have still received letters from Highways England telling them that they are losing their homes. This is not acceptable.
I am yet to speak to anyone who can give us a single true benefit to the people of Thurrock, or anywhere along and around the route, or indeed in the areas that are impacted by the Dartford crossing, bearing in mind the current crossing will still be over capacity. We know that the £6.8 billion plus cost that will now purely be down to taxpayers, but what about the additional cost to our lives, health, homes, communities, greenbelt, farmland, forests, etc.? The cost to everyone's physical and mental health and well-being. We deserve better, and that is what we must demand. As well as the items on the agenda tonight, we have still over just a week to keep spreading the word, getting as many of the real facts and impacts out there, and encouraging everyone we can to take part in the consultation before it ends on December the 20th. Please do all you can to keep spreading the word. Every single response counts. I know all 49 of you stand together in your opposition to the Lower Thames crossing, and we hope that this continues to be the case for this and everything that strengthens and supports the case against the proposed Lower Thames crossing, as it is critically important to each and every person in Thurrock and along the entire Lower Thames crossing route that our concerns are heard and action is taken to ensure the best possible outcome for us and future generations. Together we are stronger.
I understand Wesley Mercer, representative from Thurrock Business Board, is unavailable to attend this evening. Would Peter Ward, representative from the Port of Tilbury, like to speak on this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As business representative for the Port of Tilbury, I represent one of the largest employers in Thurrock. We directly or indirectly employ some 8,500 people. This will rise to 11,000 people should we gain consent for our port extension in the new year. We have given serious consultation to the Lower Thames Crossing consultation, and currently we are opposed to the scheme in the form that has been released for consultation. This is particularly due to the omission of the Tilbury Link Road from the plans, a position which Thurrock Council Consultation Response we also know supports as well. From a business perspective, we find it inconceivable that one of the UK's largest ports will not have adequate connectivity to the Lower Thames crossing. Port connectivity is supported by the government, most notably the Department for Transport, which is the sponsor of Highways England, who did their own connectivity study earlier this year, which was published, which stressed the importance of connectivity between the strategic road network and UK ports and airports. We also do not believe that Lower Thames Crossing meets the test required under the National Networks policy. The Lower Thames Crossing is appraised within its own published business case against 7 key objectives, which I'll just read out to you. The first of these are economic, the first one being to support sustainable local development and regional economic growth in the medium to long term. The reduction of the Tilbury Link Road greatly detracts from that in particular. The second point is to be affordable to the government and users. The third is to achieve value for money. If you look at the Tilbury Link Road in terms of the budget for the Lower Thames Crossing, it represents some 2 to 3% of the overall budget were it to be included, for example. On community environment, it is to minimise the impacts on health and the environment, and in terms of transport, it is to relieve the congested Dartford crossing and approach roads and improve the performance by providing free-flowing north-south capacity. It's also to improve the resilience of the Thames crossings and the major road network, and overall to improve safety. Having analysed these, we believe the reinstatement of the Tilbury Link Road would greatly assist in meeting a number of these scheme objectives. This view is further supported by a number of other businesses, many of them within the port, and a number of other prominent business-related groups, including the South East LEP, OSE, Invest Essex and the Port London Authority, to name but a few. We will be submitting a full response to the Lower Thames Crossing, which will be submitted next week, which will address our response on all of these points. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kieran, I now move to you as Chair of Planning, Transport and Regen Overview and Scrutiny. Do you wish to speak?
Speak, Madam Mayor, thank you. And this will be very brief because the message is very, very clear. We need a crossing, just not this crossing. Time and time again we've stood united and said no. all 49 members, with our residents behind us, saying no. Highways England have treated our borough, our home, with contempt. For too long now, this flawed Lower Thames crossing has been hanging over us like a sword of Damocles. Its shadow looms large over the future of our borough. When we looked at the draft local plan earlier, we saw visibly the line of the proposed route ripping through the homes and land of our borough. So, just in case Highways England are slow to understand, we in Thurrock are not NIMBYs. We know that a crossing is needed, but this is the wrong crossing in the wrong place. And that's just all I need to say, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Kemp, you wish to speak?
Madam Mayor, we've been debating this crossing or the variation on this crossing for the best part of 10 years now. And I think we've all kind of been anticipating the time when Highways England actually brought forward their final route proposals. We remember they whittled down the first, 5 possible routes to 3, waited and waited, consulted on 3, then it was down to 2, then it was down to 1. But I don't think any of us really believed that when the final preferred route was published, that it would be quite as bad as the route that we're looking at today. And I think each of us will have our own particular issue with what's planned, with what's here in front of us, be it the rest area of East Tilbury, the fact that we have a mainly 3-lane motorway going through the borough, but with stretches where it's reduced to 2 lanes, so that you build in bottlenecks. It could be those 6-metre high embankments at the back of Channel St Mary within just a few hundred yards of people's homes. Or it could be the lack of the Tilbury Link Road that we've already spoken about, which means something like an 8-kilometre diversion for people wanting to get to Tilbury. But you know, in a strange sort of way, I think that to concentrate on any of those misses the point. And the point is just pretty fundamental. This is just the wrong crossing in the wrong place. It does nothing to ease the huge congestion that we suffer here in Thurrock on a regular basis. It doesn't add to the resilience of the local, the regional or the national road network. In fact, it will increase traffic, it will increase congestion, and it will hugely impact on air quality in this borough. And absolutely fundamentally, it destroys huge areas of our green belt. It creates an environmental and ecological disaster that we will have to live with here for generations to come. And finally, Madam Mayor, this road, this monstrosity, splits our borough in 2 and risks creating 2 separate communities that are isolated from each other by this road. This is something that we cannot live with, and I urge everybody to support the recommendations before me tonight.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Spillman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to echo some of the very well-made points by other members. Like most members in this chamber, I regard myself as an environmentalist. And no person with any regard for the borough of Thurrock's environment can possibly look at this plan and see anything other than a catastrophe if we allow this to go ahead as it's planned. Now, I'd like to thank, there's been a lot of work put into this report, so I'd really like to thank the director, the assistant director, and all the task force, the resident representation on the task force as well. Now, I'm on the militant side of opposition towards this text policy, and I would like to see, after we stick this consultation in, you don't stop projects like this without a significant body of residents making themselves very heard. And we've got some wonderful groups in this borough that are doing everything they can. And I would like to see the council look at providing some more logistical and maybe financial support to these groups, because we can do the legal side of it, but at the end of the day, politicians will be making these decisions, and we need to have enough noise generated from Thurrock, from the people of Thurrock, to put a little bit of fear into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, there is an alternative. I was approached some 18 months ago. There is a Chinese consortium that have written to the government. Can they get a meeting with the government? No. Who wants to meet them? You have the chief executive and chairman of the Chinese State Railway Company want to invest £8 billion to bring a crossing across from Kent to Essex at Canby, to bring it up on the A130, and all they want in return are the tolls for a number of years. Now, I think it's pretty appalling that this group of business people cannot get near a government minister. If a meeting was held, the proposals are on the table, and what it will do, it would not just be a road link, it would be a rail and road. Now, Councillor Stillman talks about the environment. Well, the first thing we've got to do to get our environment back to something approaching good, so people can breathe, is take the heavy trucks off the road and onto a railway system. And that's what we should be doing. We should be going back to them days before another government in the 60s broke our railways up. These are history lessons, but we are paying the consequences for them. And there is, as I say, a £7.5 billion cheque from this Chinese state railway company willing to invest in our country at no expense to the Exchequer, to take the traffic away from the M25. It would come up onto the A130. The A130, as we all know, is being extended round the back of Chelmsford by Essex County Council by a government grant, which will link up with the A120, which in turn links up with the M11. You then link up with the A14, which is being free-laned, straight into Birmingham. And there you hit the powerhouse of the Midlands. And that's where a lot of the traffic would like to go. We don't want to put more traffic onto the M25. We all know to our cost it's the National Car Park. And all I plead this evening is that the Conservative members reach out to their government and provide this meeting, because there is a solution, and the solution is on the table, and it has been presented to senior members and to senior officers in this council.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the consultation response, and I am pleased to see that Thurrock Council is reiterating our absolute opposition to this scheme. As our consultation response clearly states, there are no measures that could mitigate the devastating impact this motorway will have on our borough and our health. I sit on the cross-party task force, and it's gratifying to see that many of the concerns and thorny issues we have identified have been included in the response. The response exposes the weakness of the Lower Thames Crossing proposal and the sheer arrogance of Highways England. I would like to take a moment to thank the residents' representatives Linda and Laura for their really valuable and poignant contributions to the task force. Their hard work, tenacity and dedication should be applauded. I will be voting in favour of the motion and I encourage everyone else to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Little.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to just go back to, I've been looking at this crossing since 2006, and obviously it's devastating, and I'm going to be a bit of an NIMBY about my own ward, because, you know, it really is going to be devastating, not only for the whole of Thurrock, but what Highways England are trying to do. Alden Fen, for instance, is a national beauty space. It is fenland. It's going to actually, with this elevated proposal, will actually cause so much light pollution, etc. It's totally unacceptable. Also, Showground, for instance, if we went along with Highways England, the community would be cut away from actually a local asset. Baker Street is going to be like Spaghetti Junction. Air pollution, light pollution is going to be seen right across the borough. There's going to be no access for local residents to use. Spoils from the construction site. Where the hell are they going to put all of that? You know, all this earth that's going to be contaminated, etc. Construction site at the end of Baker Street, you know, a village. What they're going to do is none of the vehicles there are regulated by the same laws as our vehicles are, and therefore red diesel fumes and God knows what, as Mr. Mullins was saying tonight, will be, you know, just put out onto the local area where there is wind that actually will waft it over towards Stiffer Caves and the other part of the west of the borough, which would be absolutely awful. But going back to Councillor Rice's point of view about the Chinese, I was a little bit involved in some of these meetings, and one of the things the Chinese ambassador said to these two gentlemen who were proposing this crossing, which actually is a good idea, but he actually said what he needed them to do was to go out and design it, which they hadn't done totally. So that is one of the reasons why it was failing. And, you know, my own MP went and spoke to them as well. So there has been some, you know, chat backwards and forwards, but the Chinese embassy themselves had said, you know, lovely idea, but we actually need a proper proposal and proper drawings, which they wouldn't do. So that is one of the points about that. But I would actually welcome it to be more to the east of the borough, east of Essex. Thank you.
Councillor Roccanardi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So according to the recommendation 1.1 in this report, it is very right that we continue to oppose the Lower Thames crossing in Thurrock. During our Children's Overview Scrutiny meeting last week, we received an update on the free school sites, particularly land lying to the northwest of Stamford Road, Grace, and which is currently earmarked for Offset Eat Academy. Air quality is a serious issue. The level of pollution to the close proximity of school accommodating many children should be prevented and should be strongly highlighted to Highways England. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redzel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try not to speak too long because everybody wants to stay tonight. I just feel that it's good actually to see us all 49 of us on the same song sheet as with the MPs. I think the pollution that is going to be great for, you know, it's going to be worse for Thurrock. Highways England keep telling us it's going to bring us jobs and everything else, but I don't think it does. And also the blight that it's putting on residents already by the red line keep being moved, and as Councillor Lochinardo said, that it's the schools, it's affecting the schools that are going to go up now. The red line keeps changing, so we don't know where we are. The rugby club is affected, everybody, and especially in our ward in Blackshots, the red line keeps moving, so we don't know where we are. So, and I just think that we've got to remember that residents at the moment, I've got a few members that one man's had a heart attack with it because he just doesn't know where his house will be. And I think we've got a lot of residents out there who just don't know what's going to happen, and it's worrying to them, you know, selling their house, if they can sell their house because of what's happening. So I think it's good that we're all on the same song sheet, and we don't want the pollution and we don't want the road. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to stick away from the facts and figures that are in the consultation responses. They're all quite clear and I agree with all of them. I'd just like to simply say a few words about how I and the residents feel. When I became member for housing, one of the first ideas I wanted to bring forward was to ensure our housing allocation policy was based on our residents' needs. A word that roughly translates to requiring something because it's essential or very important rather than just desirable. So I'd like to apply that logic with our residents' needs in relation to this proposal. I represent a beautiful rural ward, and none of the residents I have spoken to believe a 6-lane scar on our countryside to be essential, important or certainly not desirable. And not because we're all NIMBYs, just that we cannot see any need for this, as it will not bring any benefit to our residents. In fact, it would encase us all in a triangle of toxic fumes. The road, in Highways England's own words, will very soon become over capacity, and in my opinion, could simply make the M25 Dartford Crossing an even bigger temporary car park. We're told that many hours of traffic management matrix have been studied, but I'm sorry, logic alone tells you that a new road that joins the M25 so close to the root of the problem, i.e. the Dartford Crossing, will simply become part of the problem, with the tailback going back past the new road exit within minutes, therefore bringing nothing to Thurrock other than a rat run through Thurrock. Our essential and important need is to be able to breathe the best air possible, and for our children to continue in the future to breathe the best air. And unfortunately, Thurrock already is not the best, so let's not pollute that air even more with this road and fight its existence with everything we can muster. So please, do not forget to complete your individual consultation papers and get them sent off. Thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I agree with many in here, well, everybody in here tonight, that this is the wrong crossing in the wrong place. My concerns, of which there are many, include the failure of Highways England to carry out a standalone health assessment on the effects during the construction and the potential health effects on those living near the crossing should it go ahead, of which I hope it doesn't. It's a myth that our breathing is not going to be affected because the traffic will be moving. Just look at the health data of Tilbury residents. We don't have traffic jams, but we do indeed have the Dock Approach Road. Residents living near the crossing can look forward to COPD, bronchial issues, rising levels of asthma, and 10 years shaved off of your life expectancy. The last part that I need to say tonight will be controversial in the chamber, but I'm going to say it anyway because I may not get another chance. The 12,000 plus residents of Tilbury, of which I am one, do not want to see the link road reinstated. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be fairly brief. My position remains the same. I'm fully opposed to the Lower Thames crossing. If I could just go back to the PIR, which is the Preliminary Environmental Information Report, where it states it does not contain a standalone assessment of human health impacts. Now, I can't stress that enough. Okay. I believe it's going to be an ecological and an environmental catastrophe, literally driving a stake through the heart of Thurrock. Okay, we constantly hear about it's coming out of the public purse, and we constantly hear about value for money. Now, I'll just finish on when are we going to get value for health here in Thurrock, and not value for money?
Councillor Collins.
Thank you. I'd just like to add my condemnation to this act of vandalism. I can't see any thought or anything constructive in these plans. I'm totally against it, and I will oppose it implacably. Thank you.
Councillor Coxon.
Thank you very much. If you listen to all this tonight, it's quite interesting, and you have to congratulate Highways England for one thing. Highways England have succeeded to getting everyone who lives, works, plays, and owns businesses like the major ports to reject this route. And all the exec representatives here tonight, both MPs, all the MEPs, I can't find an elected representative in nearly South East Essex now, are supporting this. Now, that is an astonishing thing. If you look what they've done since we started this in 2006, there were some people choosing their routes to lose. And they've made a route that actually only, I think, Essex County Council may like. Even they've got some objections now to some of their group. So, one thing they've done, I've never known it, and I've told Highways England this in their conversations. How did you do this? Because it is an amazing thing that no one wants this route, and everything, there's something wrong with it, and they can't do that. They can't find something. Oh, maybe Brexit, they've done that as well. I'll leave that there.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
crossing. It is a bad design which will increase traffic flow, noise and more pollution. My ward will become like a toxic triangle. This crossing should be built further up the river towards Canley Island for a start. But I must say, we as councillors are giving Highways England a good fight, all united and the residents and all the groups, and we will continue to scrutinise every single thing they do to get the best for our residents.
Councillor Watkins. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I won't repeat too much of what's already been said this evening. I think everyone's kind of stated how everyone's generally feeling about this, including the residents of Thurrock. And also I do plead to them as well who are in the chamber this evening, who are watching live hopefully, and who may well be watching this back at some point in time as well, just the importance of filling out that consultation and saying no to this. Members and residents alike only have to read the consultation to gauge, and I will use the word which Councillor Herring used, contempt, which Highways England have shown for Thurrock and its residents. And it's not just a consultation, but it's the entire process as well. They come forward with pathway consultations and ideas which must have key information, breaks guidance, and does not provide results and data which it should be provided, which only suggests they do not have it or do not want to share it. But the consultation shows that it will do not what they're asking for it to do, which is they're saying, for example, to improve traffic management. It will do the complete opposite and make things worse, Madam Mayor. I'm sure, like everyone else, disappointed and remain disappointed by the poor consultation which Highways England have conducted. Only last week, in Coronham as an example, with their travelling van, residents had to stand in the middle of the road in order to be able to speak to representatives from Highways England. Again, that just shows nothing but pure contempt for Thurrock residents. They don't care, it seems. Madam Mayor, we're told, as I've said, that one of the benefits of this Lower Thames crossing is going to be to improve traffic across the borough. But again, as I state, we know that's not going to happen. The outdated figures, outdated stats, outdated plans and outdated ideas, which do nothing but add more congestion to the roads of Thurrock and do nothing but increase the pollution levels which we're seeing, which we as a council are constantly trying to fight pollution levels and improve the traffic. So I fully support the position this council is taking. I fully thank all the members for their positions as well in fighting this, and we will continue to fight this.
Councillor Henn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think probably when we all sat and made a couple of notes about what we might be inclined to say tonight, I think the word contempt probably was on everyone's extra. And certainly just reflecting on my own notes, it's actually in the second sentence. And the one word that keeps coming back tonight is the contempt that Highways England have levied against not just this council, but against every single resident, business, entrepreneur, volunteer, anyone who lives and breathes in this borough. They've treated us with absolute contempt. I want to thank the authors of not just the report, but also the technical report that we're obviously submitting. I think you said professionally and politely, what a lot of us would struggle to do professionally and politely. We'd probably say it far less diplomatic in a true Thurrock sense. But you've been assertive, assuring and authoritative in the response that we are putting forward. And I levy that comment equally to the groups that have come forward tonight. So really competent, really challenging commentaries about what's not good about this proposal. And I think it just goes back to that whole point. Yes, Thurrock's animated. Yes, sometimes we disagree. But perhaps we are more of a family than we realise. And actually, when the rounds are all said and done, when the things really are hitting the fan, we do all pull together and we do all try and do the right thing. I think we are unanimous against the scheme, which is going to, if it just saying affects people and housing, it just doesn't have enough gravity to it. I mean, it's significant, and, I echo on Councillor Wald's point about the Connect Road. That's understandable. Let's be honest, it is understandable. We're having that frank conversation. But the whole scheme is predicated on the fact that there isn't a single benefit or connection for residents of Thurrock to use what's going to plough right through it. I mean, it's unbelievable. We've talked, myself and Madam Mayor have talked many times about COPD. This borough is well known for having challenges associated with COPD. We've seen the legacy, we've got family members that have grown up with it, and we want to try and prevent more. There's been no adequate assessment of that in this process, and again, that's as well documented in this. It's completely, severely impacting our future landscape and viability of that borough. We've often talked as members about our own children and our children's children wanting to live in the borough, with mum, dad or guardian along with them in the borough. This completely rips a great big line through any such plan. And I think it was Councillor John Kent that talked earlier about dividing Thurrock into two communities. He's absolutely right. This is going to be a Thurrockised Berlin Wall if we're not careful. I'm sorry to use that expression, but it's true. If we're not careful, there will be a dividing line through the heart of this borough. And, you know, we've done a lot to bring us all together. What's particularly galling, I will add, is that it pays scant regard to our heritage and identity. Coal House Hall, just wrapping up, Madam Mayor, you know, scant regard, you know, we'll skirt around that issue. The issues and options haven't been in public. It may be a Quango Highways England, but it's accountable to the people, and I don't understand why they hold us in that contempt. And as for the red line change that they did, without any regard to extending the deadline, moving the goalposts like they did, is scantily outrageous. Madam Mayor, you're drawing me to a close. I don't think Highways England can, should, I hope they won't, ignore everything that's said tonight. Not just the emotive stuff, but principally the technical piece. I think that's everything I've got to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hill. I'm going to go back to Councillor Peter Smith. On behalf of the Lower Thames Crossing Task Force, would you like to have a final sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's great that each chamber of great minds think alike. Most of the issues that have been spoken about this evening go round and round and round. And, you know, we just have got to congratulate our officers and the teams for this very detailed report and getting all of our bits, you know, our wishes into the response. And there is some more bits to add. Additionally, Councillor Cottrell mentioned Essex County councillors, you know, were against this. And just 2 days ago, I received emails from some Essex County councillors with their concerns for us, and these are in the north of the borough. It's quite right, it's not NIMBYism, we've got 3 crossings already, we don't need another, and this is just the wrong crossing in the wrong place. I don't really think there's any much more I need to add. I think everything has pretty much been summarised tonight. But I'd just like to finally end on, Madam Mayor, if and when the time is right, and if the legal advice of our teams are that we go to judicial review, that we just do that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ledger, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to echo words that have already been said this evening, thanking officers, members alike, and indeed members of the task force, who not only those that have turned up here today to speak, but those that are fed in all the way through. For the residents and the businesses in Thurrock taking part in this and making their voice heard. On the whole, obviously everything that's been said here is spot on. We'll sum up a few things. I don't quite actually agree fully with the response about Thurrock fiddling whilst it burns. Irrespective of whether it's Councillor Kemp, who was leader, or myself, we've been united in this. We have put hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of money into fighting this. We've made resources available, we've made time available, and that will continue. Laura, again, I'd like to thank you for the conversations we've had and everything that you've said tonight. Literally the words of us all. It's absolutely fantastic. The ports, again, all the fuel that comes into Thurrock, the food, the papers that many people will read about this, be printed on tomorrow, all comes through the ports in Thurrock. Again, they're not going to be helped and served by this disastrous plan. Councillor Kerry, again, spot on. Indeed, I could go through a list of every single member here and say, spot on, spot on, spot on. There was nothing in here that we heard tonight that I can disagree with. I will add to Councillor Okanali with the air quality. We was told at the Select meeting that this doesn't really matter. Electric cars from 2030 will get rid of all of this problem. Irrespective of the fact that, that's 2030 and that's new vehicles, it's not HGVs and pretty much every other type of vehicle that pump out pollutant. That seems to be completely ignored by Highways England. Indeed, when it comes to pumping out pollutants, I think they might be top of the list. Councillor Johnson, this isn't a solution, it's quite right. This is an extension to the problem. It's the wrong crossing in the wrong place. Councillor Allen, value for money. Yeah, absolutely spot on. This doesn't read anything. Local, regional, national. That's That's not value for money. That's a white elephant this nation can't afford. It's a white elephant that this borough can't afford, both health and financial. Berlin Wall of Thurrock, absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. So, in closure, I hope we can get full agreement, which it appears to be that's going to happen tonight, but the fight doesn't end on the 20th of December. This needs to continue until the Highways of England finally accept that this is the wrong crossing in the wrong place, and it won't just be the members here, it's members in other chambers, it's MPs and people up and down the whole of the South East. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you all for that debate this evening. I'm going to now move on to voting on the recommendations. Are all members in agreement with the recommendations in the report?
Agreed.
Is there anyone against? And is anybody abstaining? Thank you, the recommendations are passed.
Yeah.
We're now moving on to report on the political balance and allocation of seats on committees. The report is found on page 127 to 132 of the agenda. Councillor Gledhill, would you please introduce the report?
I'll try and do this under 20 seconds. This is a factual report which shows an equal balance following changes with 2 elected members joining the Conservative group. This results in a change of political balance on 3 committees: Corporate Overview Scrutiny, Planning and Transport, Regeneration Overview, Scrutiny Committee and Licensing, and as such, we report.
Councillor John Kemp, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Spillman, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
You sure? Would any member like to speak? Okay, Councillor Glenn, will you sum up your report? We're all agreed. Okay, we move on to the next item. Appointments to committees and outside bodies, statutory and other panels. Councillor Gledhill, do you wish to make any changes?
That's right enough. Include corporate overview scrutiny, that would be Councillor Hay, Planning, Transport, Regeneration, Councillor Jeffries, and Licensing, Councillor Anderson.
Councillor John Kemp, do you wish to make any changes?
Just the one, please, Madam Mayor. I will be replacing Councillor Garish on the General Services Committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spillman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be removing Councillor James from Corporate Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Baker from Planning, Transport, Regeneration, and Councillor Cherry from Licensing.
Are members in agreement with the nominations?
Agreed.
Thank you. So it just goes for me to say I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a peaceful New Year. And that's the close of the meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Member.